Alderman Rainey. Alderman Miller.
Here.
Alderman Fisk.
Here.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Here.
Alderman Nguyen.
Here.
Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Alderman Holmes.
Here.
Alderman Tindem.
Here.
Alderman Grover.
Here, thank you, Madam.
We have a quorum. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 26, 2015 meeting of the Evanston City Council. The first item on the agenda is Mayor's public announcements and proclamations. I proclaim that I have no proclamations tonight, but I did want to talk about the Memorial Day celebration in the rain. It was incredibly well attended, and I was very proud to be an Evanstonian. We kept our speeches very short, but there was an excellent crowd in spite of pouring rain. Next is City Manager's public announcements.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'd like to call Jonathan Williams Kinzel to the podium. As you all know, and for the members of the audience, Jonathan is leaving us. Jonathan is moving on to bigger, better things. He's going to become the assistant to the city manager in Woodbury, Minnesota. We're very proud, very excited. Jonathan has served for the last 2 years as a local government management fellow. This is a program of the International City County Management Association. There is a national application process, and only the best and the brightest get selected for the program. And of course, Evanston only picks the best and the brightest of the best and the brightest. So we were very fortunate. Jonathan and Cindy Plant joined us about 2 years ago. Jonathan has done a whole variety of different things with the city of Evanston. Most of you know him from his staffing of the council meetings and worrying about the bills list, but he's been very involved with the Human Relations Commission, working with them very diligently, really for the whole time that you've been with us. A project that is just now coming to fruition, which you'll hear more about in a few weeks, is a community ambassador program, which is Jonathan has spearheaded completely to train community volunteers to help at city events, to help share information about the city of Evanston. So Jonathan, on behalf of the city, your colleagues and fellow workers, I'd like to present this to you. It says, Jonathan Williams Kinzel, ICMA Local Government Management Fellow, in appreciation of your excellent service, City of Evanston, Illinois, 2013-2015. Congratulations.
This is awesome. I'll say that much. This is awesome. I really appreciate everybody here. There's so many names that I could really thank, but you all gave me opportunity, and I really do appreciate it. A lot of people dream of being able to do things like this, and I was just blessed and fortunate enough that you all just took a chance on me. So I really thank you all for helping me, supporting me, being there for me, professionally, personally, everything, and just making this a lot of fun too. So thank you so much.
Jonathan, you made the mayor cry when I heard you were leaving.
Yeah, for real.
Not a lot of people make the mayor cry. Alderman Grover.
I want to make sure that the ICMA knows that this is a success story for the ICMA. And Wally, thank you so much for your commitment to the ICMA Fellowship Program and for producing for us such great candidates. And Jonathan, thanks for your continuing commitment to public administration and for doing this great work. I'm glad you're doing it.
Next, Madam Mayor, I'd like to introduce Ilda Capricioso, the Assistant to the City Manager and our Intergovernmental Relations Coordinator, to talk about our upcoming pilot program with the CTA for the Purple Line Express.
Good evening, Ilda Capricioso, Assistant to the City Manager, Mayor, City Council, City Manager Bobkowitz, and Acting Clerk Blackman. I just wanted to do a quick overview this evening in partnership with Downtown Evanston. Also, Annie Coakley is here with us this evening, who's going to talk about some of the promotions that are associated with the Purple Line Express pilot that will begin on June 1st next week. So, just very quickly, the CTA agreed to do a test extended train service from Evanston to Chicago beginning July 1st through the 10th. We had met with the CTA, the mayor, and other business and community leaders, met with the CTA last year and expressed the need for a later express option. And just some general information, you've seen this before, the CTA estimates about 468 riders to the round trip that will be needed to justify the service to maintain the service beyond the pilot. The last Purple Line Express southbound to Chicago will depart the Davis Street station at 8:05. And then the other key important date during the pilot period is Thursday, June 25th. This is the day the CTA will be physically in the cars counting passengers. So I would encourage everyone to hop on the train at 8:05 or the train prior to that. Stay on, ride until you get to Belmont, ride all the way the loop, look at the great architecture, ride back up, and bring a snack, bring a friend. Should be a lot of fun. This is just the overview of the stops that the Purple Line Express will be making and the times associated with that. It will make all the local stops in Evanston and all the local stops in Chicago. The list here just simply shows those key departure and ridership stations. So just a quick note on some of the partnerships. So we've been working with the CTA to communicate to their riders, to communicate with the media. We've also connected with PEST to make sure that their connections coming out of the Davis stop and also out of the Linden stop in Wilmette will make those connections and inform their riders as well. We've reached out to Skokie and Wilmette to inform their residents that there is an additional express service in the evening. And then we've also reached out to the city aldermen down in Chicago, the 44th, which is the Belmont stop, and the 49th, which is the Howard stop. We'll be reaching out to our business districts this week about just providing some information, the ones that are located near the stations. And then, of course, with us tonight is Annie Coakley with Downtown Evanston, who's been really working with us to kind of help promote and provide some marketing for this pilot that we have starting on June.
Ilda, Alderman Fisk has a question.
Oh, sure.
Thanks. Just a second. If you get on at Central or Noise, you're still counted, right? I mean, even though this says starting at Davis?
Yeah, but they have to stay on for the express.
Right, and
yes,
they would do
absolutely.
that. And then will you be reaching out to the business districts along Central Street and Noise Street?
Absolutely. This week we'll be sending them information.
And Foster, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. So I wanted to just have Annie Coakley from Downtown Evanston talk a little bit about some of the events and promotions that we're doing for the express.
Thanks. All right. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager Bobkowitz, and Acting City Clerk Blackman. I'm Annie Coakley, the Executive Director of Downtown Evanston, and as Ilda mentioned, we've been working with a lot of our businesses in the downtown district to put together promotions and events, as well as events that will come out of downtown Evanston in order to make sure we can capture our downtown workforce to stay and take that later train, as well as cross-promote with my colleagues in other at Lakeview East and in Rogers Park Business Alliance to make sure that they can send folks up to Evanston during that time as well. And one of the things that we'll be doing, you'll see this flyer we put together, we'll be flyering using volunteers to flyer at the Belmont station in the morning on these weeks that you'll see here. So June 1st through the 5th, we'll have the flyer promotion at Davis and at Belmont. We also coordinated two extra, it's Thursday's Let's Dance, so that they would coordinate in the timing of this of this pilot. So we'll have two extra downtown dance series during that time, and they will also be located right next to the train station where they were previously located many years ago. again, with the flyering, and then we have promotions with the bar classes. They're going to be doing outdoor bar events, and then it's a bar to bar, so they will exercise outside and then go have a drink at a bar. And the EAC is putting on a fun run on June 24th. Downtown Evanston is promoting a wine walk with downtown stores on the 25th. And we'll also be promoting It's Thursday Let's Dance on the 25th, as Ilda mentioned, is kind of the night that we're really trying to drive up those numbers at that 8:05. And then we're hosting a scavenger hunt on July 8th. We have these flyers you've seen. We're also, I think, kind of working on maybe a new idea that just came out today, but it hasn't been necessarily blessed, I believe. We're also advertising this promotional heavily, so we'll have 15 radio spots on WBEZ to promote this, 175 CTA rail cards on the red, purple, and yellow line. That's one of the creative pieces that will be the actual ad, advertisement in the Evanston Review, the Reader, Evanston Magazine, and Evanston Now. And that's the other promotional or the creative ad that we have placed in other publications. We're also going to have 5 email blasts through the Chicago Reader, which reaches 65,000 people kind of in that Belmont district, to make sure that they come up and experience dining here. And last is the schedule for It's Thursday Let's Dance. I'm also working heavily with the restaurants here to create a Purple Plate special, which will advertise heavily more as we get closer. A lot of them are taking their time, but we do have commitment from Smiley, Farmhouse, Boltwood, Bangers and Lace, Chef Station. They're all coming up with different plates that we're going to promote heavily through social media once they get their creative juices flowing. That's sort of it for my presentation.
Any questions?
Do you have any questions?
Alderman Grover.
I do know that ridership increases during the Cubs games. So there are quite a few night games between June 1st and July 10th. There's a way then to cross-market with the Chicago Cubs. Even the week of the last week of this, Cubs are at home against the Dodgers for that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for 7 p.m. games, and that would seem to really play well into getting ridership up for that late night express.
Exactly. We actually, Ilda drafted a letter to the Cubs, and I have a former colleague who ran the Central Lakeview Merchants Association, is now working for the Cubs, and got it right into her hand, and so she's escalating that too.
And there's a Wilmette resident named Ricketts who's very interested in all this as well. So we're working with his staff. Actually, he has reached out to us through the Evanston Wilmette Golf Association to see how we could work more closely. So we are connected with the Cubs.
Thank you.
And as we move into the summer months, lots of exciting things happening in Evanston. Next, I'd like to ask Lisa Delantoni, the co-chair of the Evanston Arts Council, to come up and talk about an event that's coming up on June 6th.
Good evening, Mayor, and everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. I don't have a fancy presentation, but I have a really fancy handout. So I'm going to talk and walk around and hand these out.
Can't do that because of television, so we'll pass it out for you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, sir. One each, several. This is an early press run of a map for an event that is called Open Studios Evanston, which is the 2nd annual artist studio tour in the city of Evanston, and it is designed to engage the general public from wherever, Chicagoland, the Midwest, and beyond, with people who are creating art in studios in the city of Evanston. And there are numerous artists who are living and working and creating in studios in our city. The first year we did this, there were about 15 to 20 studios. Could I just grab one of those? Sorry, you can keep passing them out if anybody else wants them. This year there will be 39 studios. So as you see, there is a map of the entire city. The numbered studios are actually people who are inviting the general public into their studios for a period of time, and they are ceramicists, painters, sculptors, people who do drawing, mixed media. And we've expanded the event. On the backside, you can see that there are now galleries and venues. We're sort of reaching out as an economic development arm of the event. We're saying to boutiques like Stumble and Relish, if you sell local jewelers, we'd love to put you on the map, because wouldn't it be great if I make necklaces, and I'd love for someone in my community to come buy a necklace. So we invited galleries and venues to participate. Then we decided to invite performance art of any kind, whether it's dance, whether it's live poetry, to also participate. So we have a whole day of events that are taking place throughout the city. It's really important to remember that everything here is free, and everything is age appropriate, from little people who are going in to make masks at Gather on Davis Street and they're 3 years old, all the way up to any age, where this is an open event for everybody. And then the last section is the artist list. Many artists live and work in Evanston and have studios, but are not comfortable with the general public coming into their studios, so they're just hanging in a public space. That's why there's a different list for just artists. So it's a lot of text, it's a lot of words, but it's a wonderful opportunity for the entire city to engage with anyone who's really doing anything creative in this community. We also reached out to a lot of the neighborhood heads to make sure that each district had a concentration of artists and galleries together, so that you can take the CTA or ride your bike to a certain neighborhood, park or get out of the train, and then walk around that neighborhood. So as you'll see, there's sort of pockets of concentration. The dots weren't so concentrated last time. They're more concentrated this time, and we're hoping that by our third annual, we have lots more locations. So really, walkability was a big focus of the group of volunteers that put this on. The fact that we want it to be age appropriate for everybody, the fact that we want it to have access to everybody. So everything has to be free, and there isn't anything inappropriate. We've got everything covered, from really beautiful paintings of plums in a bowl to some great social justice work by a fellow Evanston Arts Council member, Fran Joy. Javoid Simmons is hanging up his exhibit at Kurt's Cafe South and doing a big talk. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. And the headline event this year that we didn't do last year is we're going to have a preview party on Thursday night, June 4th, from 6 to 9 p.m., where you can go to Noise Gallery on the second floor, and you can see works by all the artists who are participating, because a lot of people have said, well, this map doesn't show me art, or I don't want to go to a website and look through a bunch of art. I want to see it in person, hold the map in my hand, walk around a gallery and say, okay, I want to see this studio, this studio, this studio. So essentially you're given lots of points of entry. We're also doing a small show on ECTV during the day for people who can't leave their house and who can't jam around and walk and ride a bike. So essentially we're trying to make art accessible to everybody on this day. And I have heard many people complain that they're mad it's only 5 hours, they're mad it's only one day, they'd like for it to be a month. So maybe in the third year we will have more than just 12 to 5, but this is for a second annual sort of volunteer-grown event. I think I'm pretty proud of the fact that we've gotten this far. So I hope you can all participate and join and see. And even if you just want to check out who makes art in Evanston, you can go to the website. It's up all the time. It's openstudiosevanston.blogspot.com, and it pretty much catalogs anybody who's willing to show their work to the public. So thank you for having me tonight. Any questions?
Looks wonderful.
Thanks very much. Thank you, thank you. Have a good night.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, 2 more items. We're going from art and kind of making our way to rats. Next is the shopping bag ordinance. As you know, August 1st is right around the corner for the effective date of our new regulations regarding the plastic shopping bags. Catherine Hurley, our sustainability manager, is here with a brief update.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, City Manager Bobkowitz, and Acting City Clerk Blackman. Catherine Hurley, Sustainability Manager. Just to give a few quick highlights. As we may recall, our shopping bag ordinance will be going into effect August 1st, 2015. So our large chain and franchise stores will no longer be giving the free plastic bags at checkout. We're encouraging customers to bring their own reusable bag or backpack or put in your purse, any old your bike bag. But paper bags are still allowed, and bulk bags inside the store for fruit, produce, to keep meat separated, bulk nuts, etc. And then on this slide we have all the stores that are being impacted by the ordinance listed here. So starting June 1, we're going to be launching the public education and awareness campaign titled Think Outside the Bag, which will be showing up in all of our websites, social media, email. There'll be posters, there'll be handouts, lots of ways to help get the word out to the community so people aren't surprised. Staff has been actively working with all of our stores, and everyone is really eager to help participate and be proactively on board. Many stores are going to be doing incentives for Bring Your Own Bag, and we'll be promoting all of those at the cityofelvanston.org/bags website. We'll also be promoting all Evanston stores that sell dog waste bags for people who are concerned they won't have as many plastic shopping bags for dog waste. So even stores that are smaller that aren't impacted will be promoting to go shop in Evanston and get dog waste bags. Our community centers are going to become outreach hubs for a lot of this activity. So starting the week of June 1st, we'll be doing some reusable bag giveaways, and these are the bags that were purchased for a starter to help make bags accessible. We'll also be launching a share a bag program because we received a lot of feedback that people that have a lot of reusable bags have so many reusable bags, they would like to give those reusable bags away. So we'll have bins at all of our community centers where people can donate extra bags, and if you need extra bags, you can take some. And that program will extend into the future beyond the launch. We do have a limited number of these blue bags, and I'll show you the list on the next page of when we'll be distributing those. Starting the week of June 8th, we'll also be doing plastic bag and film packaging recycling. So all the plastic bags, as well as the plastic that comes around your bread, loaf of bread, or your toilet paper, paper towel, or dry cleaner bag, that's also all recyclable, but not in the curbside bin. Those need to go in special bins. So the community centers will also have bins for clean plastic film. And thanks to a partnership with Trex, that film will be taken and recycled into plastic, wood, alternative decking, and outdoor furniture material, which also is sold at Evanston Lumber. So our community centers are going to be turning into, in addition to all the other wonderful things they do, hubs for our outreach efforts. This slide shows the initial dates, times, and locations of when we'll be having reusable bags to be given away at community centers and library locations. And we'll also be handing out the flyers, posters, and talking to people about the share bag and the plastic film containers and how those programs work. And then beyond the initial giveaway for these blue bags, all of these locations will have the share bag and the plastic film and packaging recycling on an ongoing basis. So we'll start to have lots more information on the website and e-news at all of our summer events. All the stores will be receiving posters and copies of the handouts, and all of our events this summer will be starting to have people think outside the bag and support our bag ordinance effective August 1st. That's it.
Thank you very much.
And last presentation, Madam Mayor, members of the council, is regarding rats. There's been a certain amount of annual consternation regarding rats in Evanston, and I thought it would be an excellent opportunity for our Health and Human Services Department to talk about our current efforts. Director Thomas Smith is here, along with Assistant Director Carl Kneva.
Yes, good evening. City Manager Bob Quitz, Honorable Mayor Tisdale, City Council, and Acting Clerk Blackman. Thank you for giving us this great opportunity to provide a rodent abatement update. We did this last year, and I say great opportunity because what we really want you to hear tonight is the strategy on how we're being responsive to the service calls we're getting, and how residents play an integral part of this integrated pest management system that Carl Kneva, the Assistant Health Director for Health and Human Services, is going to bring to you tonight. And I just want to publicly thank Carl Kneva for not only his leadership, because it has been his leadership working with intimately with residents and our staff to make sure that we have the proper training the staff needs to have. Not only has he made it intentional that our staff in Health and Human Services are trained, but all of our field staff. We have had a rodent academy for 2 years now, where we're making sure that people who are in the field have the same information that our staff have, because we know that the more eyes and the more involvement for those who are in the field, the more helpful this integrated pest management system does work. We also know that the more information that we can get and saturate the community with really helps to be more responsive to this rodent update that we're going to provide for you tonight. So I think at the end of Carl's talk, of course, we'll be available for questions, but I just really want you to hear how integrated pest management can work and has worked in the past. So we're going to give you an update in terms of what we looked like last year, what we look like today, and what we're still doing to address it. Okay. Carl?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, City Manager Bob Quitz, thank you, Yvonne, for those kind words, first off, and thank you all for being participatory in this process. I know that we've spoken to a number of aldermen in this process, to the city manager, even the mayor last week talking about rats, so I know that you're all involved, as all the residents are. We want to make sure that we're addressing these situations as we can. Just to back up a little bit as a history of the program, when I started here about 10 years ago, the program was mostly on alley treatments. We didn't go on to private property. That treatment and the process has grown to match the needs and wants of our residents. We want to make sure that we're matching their wants and needs and providing the service that they want. So part of that service has now grown from addressing it on public ways and alleys to addressing to addressing the issue on private property and working with a contractor, because the need and the want has become larger than what our individual staff can provide. So this is the map that you saw in August of last year. You can see, pretty clearly the red and orange and yellow areas are the areas where on this map there are more complaints than in others where you're seeing blue, where there were essentially less complaints. So this is where we plan our abatement. We have staff that goes out regularly looking at alleys to see if there are issues. What we are seeing is that the alleys are getting better. They've been progressively better during the time that I've been here. The issue that we're having is when staff go down those alleys, they see the alleys are in good shape. We walk through them and see that on some individual properties that we may not see, there are issues. So we find bird feeders that are unmaintained. We find dog waste that's not picked up, those types of issues. And we really have to address that on the whole. And the part of integrated pest management that Director Thomas Smith spoke about is really that piece. And while the contracted program really addresses the issue of providing bait and stations like that on the properties, what we really want to do is get the information out there so residents can be empowered to address this issue on their property too, as an assist. So this is the current heat map. There is a different color. It's only because that's what we could provide for you tonight. So the areas that are in green and yellow are the areas that have the kind of more requests for service than before. Keep in mind the maps that I'm going to show you, the data that I'm going to provide, those are requests for service calls. We do not have a population of rodents that we can point to. There isn't a way that we can determine that. These are residents who have reached out to us and asked for help, asked for requests for service, and these are the people we're trying to reach with the other parts of the program as well as our contracted service. And this is again, this is a resource problem, and it's not to say the resource issue is that there's too many resources for rats out there. That's the big piece. There's too many resources for food, shelter, and water out on properties and throughout. And it takes a very little amount to keep a rodent fed. We're talking about grains of rice, food in that amount. They're able to store this throughout time, so it's not a problem that can be fixed in 24 or 48 hours. This is a longer term problem, and that's why our staff is going out. So our staff is working and educating residents about how we can do this. Our staff is going down alleys with groups of residents to try and inform them and educate them more about how to get rid of rodents and how to basically build them out. It's not just about getting rid of them and putting bait out. It's about building them out of the neighborhoods, and that's what we're really looking towards. This is a breakdown of wards. So this is that same amount of data you received last in August. However, you can see that the 2015 data has not reached to the end of June 30th. We're talking about to May 1st with the data you're seeing. So you can see that in some wards the requests for service have lessened, and in some wards they have increased. And that's because the rodent situation is dynamic. The spring and fall seasons are the times when they breed, so they're going to be out much more. They're going to be trying to collect food. They're going to be out, and people are going to see them. This is also a time right after the winter when all that snow is cleared. So people are outside more. They're going to see more rodents at this time. So as you can see, that's the breakdown per ward for the last 3 years, about relatively the same amount of time. So we have a contracted service that goes out to each property and provides information. When that contracted service goes out, residents are provided, you all have received these door hangers on your desk, but these are information that shows the contractor has been there, but also gives the residents a quick checklist of what to look for, so on their property to try and abate the issue. When we see larger problems, when we go down an alley, we also have postcards that we give out both in Spanish and English to give more information about how to abate the rodents. Okay. With that, we're continuing to provide education. We need resident support in this. And so when we go out and find issues, we try and give out as much information as possible. So when we see compost bins that don't meet the city's requirements, we want to educate people and let them know. When we have a controlling rats guide that is online right now that we try to make sure residents get, and we go through with them if need be. And I've already mentioned the postcard that we have. So this is all in an effort to try and prevent rodents from being on property. Okay. We've also tried to push more information out. So in the community engagement portion of our work, we've tried to get information out like this so people can real-time get information about where rodents are. So we're not just looking at that static heat map that we've had in the past that you've seen in August and now we've updated for today, but now they can get real-time information by going to these two links, and we'll put those up on the website as well so they can get all that information and have as much information and education as they possibly can to help us in this endeavor. And as one more plus that we haven't done before, one of the things that we're finding is as people do the request for service, they fill out a release of liability to allow our service on their property, to do the inspection, to do the treatment as needed. We're also now asking them to look at their property. Is there anything on their property that is encouraging rodents? So rather than have us put a bait box down that may not be effective because there's a food source or a water source on the property, now we're asking them to take a look at their own property. Are any of these measures there? So is there dog waste? Is there a water feature that's going to feed rodents? Are there any of these things there that are continuing to encourage the property? And a lot of times our staff, even though they're going down into neighborhoods and looking at these different properties, we don't have unlimited access. As you would know, we have to have permission to go into properties. Some properties have private fences, so we're unable to see every property that may be involved in the problem and unable to see all the violations. We issue citations and perform enforcement as we see violations and do that. But again, we can only enter property that we've been allowed onto. And involved in this, too, is leveraging partnerships. Director Thomas Smith talked about the Rodent Academy, which we actually just did a couple of days ago, actually last week. We had roughly about 35 or 30, somewhere between 35 and 40 participants who got education. That's our staff. And so we have more eyes than our inspectors out there to look for anything that would encourage. We're also looking at our external partners, so talking to the RTA and Metro, because the embankments are really great areas for rodents to harbor, places where they can burrow and be safe because there's not a lot of human activity. One of the good successes of this most recently is the ability to work with specifically the RTA on the Skokie Swift line to have them clear some of that out and have them and start to begin the conversation about them baiting those lines so we can start to rid those. Start to get rid of rodents in those spaces as well. That concludes my update.
Thank you very much. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Carl, on the door hanger where it says warning, keep all persons, children, and pets away from rodent burrows and activity because rodenticide may be in place.
Yes.
Can you tell me when you apply rodenticide and how people know it's there?
Sure. So we do put we have put bait boxes out. That's we do locate them and let them know through 311. That's part of the response to the request. We do put these out, and we also will flag areas. If burrows are treated, we'll put flags out to let them know, and we'll communicate back and forth that there are pesticides on the property.
But you do need the permission of a property owner to go on the property itself.
Yes. So before all this happens, there's a release of liability that the resident signs, allowing this on the property for 180 days.
Okay, so if a neighbor sees a burrow across a fence, for example, and calls 311, what is it, then do you contact the adjacent property owner and report that and ask for permission
Yes.
to go on the property?
So we'll go to that property or contact them in some way, let them know that we've seen a burrow. Sometimes that's a notice of violation. Sometimes that's a simple communication or knock on a door, and let them know that there is a burrow seen, and can we offer them the service. If they agree to it and sign the release of liability, then we move forward.
Thank you. Alderman Tendam.
Thank you. We had a large search with Christina Ferguson of your department. She did a terrific job of educating me and our neighbors, my neighbors. And we feel like there's a good program in place for the immediate area that we're concerned with. But I do think there are certainly possibilities in other places I know that have had experienced rat problems too. I guess I don't know a lot about activity, but is it possible to get that under control? I mean, is it possible to eradicate a certain area that it really is, they're back where they came from for the season, and we really are ahead of the game? Because at this point, we're asking residents to take a lot of measures like not planting garden boxes or bird feeders or a lot of things that are very enjoyable during a certain season, but we're saying during this treatment period, don't do that. Let the treatment take hold, and we can get it under control. Is that the assumption?
That's the message, yes, that we're managing the issue.
Do you feel like we're doing as much as we can at this point?
We have I'm not sure the other services that would be that we could bring to bear to address the issue. Again, with the leveraging of the partners outside, the contracted service, the education for our staff, and really having more and more people educated and involved, I think we're on the right track.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. Kneva, Director Thomas Smith. And thank you for coming out on Friday to see the area that I'm getting ready to speak about. So 2 quick questions. In terms of the consent that you need, can a renter give that, or does it have to be the property owner?
It needs to be the property owner.
So what are you doing in situations where the landlords live out of state?
We have that information for the most part. We also house the rental inspections in the health department. So when we have that landlord's information, we'll send them the release of liability. We have gotten release of liabilities from out of state landlords. Okay,
so I'll follow up with that particular address. And then my second question is, this is over the 1800 block of Madison. This house has been abandoned for years. What is it? I can't even remember the address right now. Is it 1802, the Haskin property? What are you doing in a situation like that where, there's just been months, almost years of reporting of hoarding, etc., and now we have rats there. So what is the health department doing in that situation?
Sure. So in those situations, when we have a non-compliant property owner, we issue citations and follow that process. So we sometimes that can only end up at fines here with the adjudication process, but that can also go to circuit court. So with that, there are processes that if there are violations and it works, we can try and figure out something else. We'll also treat the perimeter of the property to try and work that out as well.
Okay, so currently there are no boxes on the property or near the property.
Okay.
And give me an idea of how long it would take in order to treat the property. Because I continuously get complaints, and you've received the same emails about that specific location.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Alderman Braithwaite. I would just like to speak to that because I think the challenge in terms of what I saw was that you cure one issue, one home, and then the next door neighbor or the home next door, we can't access it, so we don't know how involved the management must be. And so to isolate an abandoned home, a vacant property in isolation without looking at the entire neighborhood, because I think there's issues up and down that entire area that I view myself, we'd have to create a strategy that addresses all of the homes. Because the reality is baiting or doing integrated pest management for one home, and there may be more than an extension down the alley. There are other yards that we can't access because we don't have that liability release. We're just moving rodents from one home, one yard to the next yard. They just move from yard to yard. I think in terms of what you're referring to, it's not just the abandoned home as a site for rodent harborage. It's several homes in that area. So allow us the opportunity to address it from a bigger strategy than that one abandoned home. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Alderman Rainey.
I guess I want to know how, this might not be a question you want to answer in public, I don't know. How effective has administrative adjudication been on this issue? And are they able to do other than fining?
Well, at that level, no. But the effect of that has been the fines have encouraged people. And I think, to take that, it would be on a case-by-case basis. So once we go to administrative education, they get a ticket for not responding.
But to both of you, this obviously hasn't been effective on these 5 houses or this block. And I remember back when we used to go to circuit court for all of our housing cases. This might be a classic situation where we just head out to Skokie and go to circuit court and ask the judge to order the block to be baited. If you're admitting we can't do it house by house. We have to do it in a comprehensive way. And I just think we ought to do that. I think we ought to start using Skokie more and more and more. Because fines, maybe some responsible people are responding to fines, but the irresponsible ones don't. They don't show up at court, they don't pay the fine. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Mr. Knieve and Director Thomas Smith. So our best tool for fighting rats in Evanston really begins with 311. It's the first tool. So that's our source of data on all of this, as well as putting the process in motion for addressing localized rat issues. So it can't be said enough that 311 is really important to the citywide efforts to address the rat issue. Don't be a bystander, essentially.
Correct.
Call it in. We can't do anything until we have the information.
Right. And it allows us to track the information that we're getting from whoever is reporting, and then they can see our progress, and they see our updates, and they actually see in real time what we're doing to address the service request.
This feedback mechanism is working. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey, then Alderman Braithwaite.
Just very briefly, you saw the heat maps. Watts down by the Skokie Swift and the CTA, which intersect my ward. People know that you're out. They see you out. They see the baits, but they're very, very unhappy because they keep seeing the rats. So we're really not getting on top of it. And tomorrow I'm going to take the city manager to a couple of properties, and we're going to take a look at them. And there are conditions around the properties, like you just said, dog feces, tall grass, litter, garbage, unkempt, conditions that harbor them. And so until we get a handle on that, and I don't think administrative adjudication is that effective in that. I mean, I think they're great on parking tickets and some housing issues, but otherwise I think we ought to take a look at Skokie.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief also. I agree. I think it's the same thing. I mean, when you go down the particular alley, there's overgrown grass, there's excess trash, and I think we're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive. And I say it now, a little bit more aggressive on the front end, or else we're going to be dealing with a much larger rat issue on the back end. So in terms of how these are going to be distributed, Mr. Knieve, because I think I may have missed this in your presentation, so I apologize. How are you going about dropping these things off? Because, I mean, I could tell you right now, I wish I had, 50 of these to walk the blocks and just stick them on the doors, particularly around that area.
Sure. So the door hangers have been in particularly used for rose pest control to give the contractor give residents the ability to know that they've been there and the treatment. The postcard is the one that we've been kind of filtering or giving through to the neighborhoods. So we're happy to provide either one of them, however many you need.
And perhaps We can make this a party.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
City Clerk, do you have communications for us?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Next is public comment. Please, everyone, keep your comments to about 2 minutes per person because we have a large number of people signed up to speak. The first four are Hecky Powell, Mike Gallo, David Jeanette, and Neil Vogel.
Good evening. I learned a lot here this evening about rats and bags. And, I got to come more often. I come this evening to speak on the proposed funding for staff stipends for restaurants which hire at-risk youth and ex-cons. I truly believe that this service of this type are needed in our community. In fact, I have been hiring ex-cons and at-risk Evanston youth and single parents since Hecky started over 31 years ago. I didn't realize that I could approach the city for support and funding these type of hires, and after speaking with several other restaurateurs, I discovered they did not know this was possible either. I am requesting that since funding is available for these type of hires and training that is sorely needed, that the funding pot be increased by 3-4 or more. In other words, we just want a piece of the action. I'm requesting that this particular issue be returned to committee so the other restaurateurs can get involved in the discussion and also be eligible to apply for funding and possible collaboration with the business that you are now considering funding. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, City Manager Bobkowitz, and council guests. My name is Mike Gallo, and I'm a resident of Evanston. I'm using my 2 minutes tonight to talk about the concept of stewardship and how it relates to the Harley Clark Mansion and land. Now, I own a business that produces conferences for municipalities. We cover topics like affordable transit, public works, and I even host one for fire chiefs. And the guiding ethic that guides my decision-making is that of stewardship. Let me explain. When you look at stewardship, the most relevant definition is that it's an ethic that enables the responsible planning and management of resources. I'm going to say that one more time. It's an ethic, the guiding principle that enables the responsible planning and management of resources. Each of you are stewards. It's what each of you signed on for, and I sincerely believe it's what each of you attempts to do, and I know it's not easy. I get it. When I look at the challenges that are coming up quickly, as quickly as this weekend, particularly for City Manager Bobkowitz, I ask each of you for 2 stewardly considerations. The first, and this is an important one, is not to board up Harley Clark before, on, or after May 31st. There's been discussion that such an action is being considered. You're going to hear tonight from some preservation experts and security experts as to why it's not necessary and why it's an absolute waste of taxpayer dollars. It's also not stewardly. The second consideration is that each of you create your own line in the sand, your own platform, that you will not authorize the sale of Harley Clark buildings or the land they sit on. Neither the mansion nor the land should be sold to any private interest. It was here when you assumed your office and your position, and I respectfully believe it's your responsibility to make sure it's here when you leave your posts. To sell it would not be stewardly. It's not a responsible planning or management of resources. And I can say again, under no argument can it be considered a stewardly action. Stewardship, it's an important principle and one that's paramount to some of the actions and decisions you're going to have to make as early as May 31st. Please use it as your guiding principle, and I guarantee you that you'll do the right thing. It'll work out for you, all your constituents, and the community. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. I'm David Jeanette. I live in 1814 Seward Street. I'm going to truncate this a bit to fit in the 2-minute window here. Excuse me. A group of Evanston citizens concerned by the prospect of an unnecessary, counterproductive, and money-wasting board-up at the Harley Clark House has engaged various professional historic preservationists to outline what would be the recommended course of action by the city in doing what is best practice when the Harley Clark House becomes vacant, while we decide how to repurpose this historic Evanston landmark. A bit of background. May 18th, Patrick Donnelly and I met with Mayor Tisdall, Alderman Grover, and City Manager Bobkowitz at 4 p.m. in the mayor's office here at City Hall. In the course of our conversation, I specifically mentioned rumors we'd heard that the Harley Clark House might be boarded up and fenced off after becoming vacant in June. Mayor Tisdall and City Manager Bobkowitz emphatically denied the rumors were true. City Manager Bobkowitz, when asked as a follow-up what his plan was when the Harley Clark House became vacant, said he would just lock the door like they had done with the Coach House on the property. He added that they would have to think about any possibility of vandalism, but he and the mayor didn't see that as being much of an issue at that location. When rumors about a plan by the city manager to board up the Harley Clark House persisted after our meeting on May 18th and in fact became more specific, Patrick wrote a cordial email to City Manager Bobkowitz on May 21st asking for clarification on the board up issue. This was the reply Patrick received. Mr. Donnelly, the plan is to secure the building once the Arts Center is vacated. Once it is empty, we will evaluate the best way to do that. There will not be a fence, but we do anticipate need to board windows from the inside to properly secure the building. So the city manager has now publicly stated his plan to board windows from the inside to properly secure the building when the Arts Center has vacated the Harley Clark House. And Mr. Bobkowitz states, and I quote, "But we do anticipate need to board windows." And I respectfully inquire who Mr. Bobkowitz is referring to here in saying we anticipate need to board windows. On whose advice is he basing his conclusion that boarding up the house is necessary? Preservationists Neil Vogel and Bonnie McDonald have kindly offered to come tonight to speak briefly about what they consider best preservation practices when Harley Clark House becomes vacant.
I do need you to wrap
yeah,
up.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Good evening. Thanks for listening to our arguments here about the Harley Clark home. The home is built with Hope's steel windows. We've worked on Lupton's, Fenestra, Detroit Steel Works. We've worked on every steel window. Hope's steel windows are the best windows you could buy in 1926. They have red bronze hardware on them. They have glazing bars that hold in the glass, not putty and spring clips. They have glazing bars. These are very exceptional windows. If you were going to have an institution and you wanted it to be secure, you would put steel windows on it. You wouldn't put plywood in. You put steel windows on it. They're very durable. They're in great condition overall. They're built to very tight tolerances. And somewhere along the way, the city decided that aluminum triple track storms were the best way to deal with air infiltration on the inside, and spent and wasted a lot of city funds putting in aluminum triple track windows. When this building goes to get restored, they'll go to the dumpster, because all it takes is the right tools to adjust the windows to fit properly, lubricate the hardware, and reglaze them. And they will perform better. They've lasted 85 years. They'll last longer than any windows that you have in your homes, unless you have Hope Steel windows. They are the best windows they've made in the past century. They have superficial corrosion on them. I've gone by to look at them several times. I submitted a letter to the city about 6 years ago that we could restore them for about 20% of the cost that's been posted online. The suggestion to board up the windows is just unnecessary and it's wasted funds. I encourage you to close them up. They do not need to be fully restored for a building that's going to be sitting waiting for a new use, but there's an easy way to treat them from the exterior and preserve them for future posterity and restoration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. 2 minutes perfectly. Next is Bonnie McDonald, Junad Risky, Patrick Donnelly, and Reverend Dr. Michael James.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, City Manager Bob Gwitz. My name is Bonnie McDonald. I'm the president and CEO of Landmarks Illinois, which is the statewide historic preservation nonprofit organization formed in 1971. We are located in Chicago, but we work across the state. We have many members here in Evanston and have been helping thousands of property owners over our more than 40-year history. So our expertise here is to talk about the boarding up of the windows that's been suggested. We've received several emails this week with concerns about that and have evaluated this proposal. And I support those who have concerns about this being unnecessary for the city. First, we feel it's unnecessary because I understand there is a security system already within the Harley Clark Mansion. I haven't independently verified that, but I'm sure that is very easy to do. If there's already an internal security system with a contract that can be turned over to the city, it is most advantageous to do it that way. And that is because even with boarding, the police are going to get there faster with a security system than if somebody breaks in with a boarding. So it is most imperative to have a security system in the first place. Second, there's a psychological impact to the community when a property is boarded, and we have seen this time and time again across the state. You want to ensure that there's a sign of hope for the community, that somebody is taking care of a property. When you board a property, it is a sign of dereliction, of vandalism, and of disinvestment. So I think you should be very cautious about taking that action when there is really hope by the citizens community that is coming forward on June 8th. Also, if you consider this to be an attractive nuisance, which I'm sure is promulgating this board up, then maintain a short-term program of some additional programming within the building, or increase police patrols in that area for the short term, or deploy the resources of the volunteers in this community. Evanston has many active volunteers here to be your eyes and ears. So boarding will likely destroy as well significant interior or exterior features of the building, which, if you're looking at preservation and reuse, is going to make it more costly to restore what you're destroying by boarding it up. So to close, we believe that the proposed boarding is an unneeded expense for the citizens of Evanston at this time, and that the positive outcomes of the citizen committee would be improved by not boarding it at this time. So thank you very much.
Janad Risky. You know, Wally, you're talking about boarding up the building, but there's a little more than that, so I'd like to see your total plan. You just don't put boards on a window of a building and then call it shut down. Let's see the rest of your plan, please. Because there's damage and all kinds of things that happen to a building if it's not shut down properly. And the city's an expert in doing things wrong. And, you know, at the last meeting, you said to me, it'd take all night to correct everything I said. Well, you're going to get a 6-page list or longer at the June 8th meeting with all your problems. It's coming. So the citizens will get a good idea of what's wrong here. With there's no money for Harley Clark, but money for everything else that's going on here. And I was at the committee, and the committee claims there's no cost issues here that should be looked into. The cost is irrelevant on the Harley Clark committee. Well, if that's such the case that it's irrelevant, then your ideas to sell this possibly are irrelevant, just as irrelevant, and your economic development ideas are just as irrelevant. What the numbers really are telling the citizens of this community is that building can be reused and repurposed. And you're basically, by the committee admitting that, which some of us believe is somewhat of a put-together committee, basically you're denying the fact that that building is viable. And frankly, I was not able to present and selected to present, and I believe it was more for political reasons. I did give a presentation, though, at the rec board, and it'll probably get posted online shortly. But the issue is the rec board accepted what I think I said. They took out of the CIP the 2 fog houses. And why did they take those 2 fog houses out of this? Because they might believe that Harley Clark could be reused for their purposes. So, you know, if that's the case, it's pretty interesting that the rec board might have agreed with what I said. That was $900,000 they wanted to repurpose. So, frankly, Wally, I think you better take a hard look at some of this stuff. And I do find it interesting, the day after the last council meeting, you started to reorganize the city, the water department, which I've talked about for over 2 years. You know, you're reorganizing that. So I'm curious to what you're going to do with that department. Because, you know, as Evanston people...
Mr. Risky, I need you to wrap up.
Yes, Mayor Tisdale, I will wrap up. But I will say this last thing. That water department's a mess. Mr. Bobkowitz knows it's a mess. And if Mr. Bobkowitz can't figure out the numbers, then I don't know how he's going to reorganize it. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Donnelly.
I didn't know the board up thing was going to cause such a heated debate. I was going to talk a little bit about that, but when I was out in the hallway, I asked a complete stranger, who are the people I'm going to be addressing tonight, because I don't know any of you. And surprisingly, she went through and told me Ms. Fisk is a leading preservationist, Dolores is a preservationist, Don Wilson is thoughtful and rational. Ann Rainey is a problem solver. Melissa lives in the Lakeshore Historic District, and Mr. Tandem lives in a landmark house. And Mr. Bobkowitz's wife, I believe, is involved in preservation. And it occurred to me that maybe we all have more of an interest in preserving one of Evanston's finest public places than people are giving you guys credit for. I just wanted to say, I'm not sure when my 2 minutes is up, but the mayor said perhaps you need to come up with a financial plan and some qualified people. We have some incredible qualified people just in the last few days who have come forward. Also some extremely affluent people in Evanston, perhaps Evanston's wealthiest people who I actually don't know, who have approached me and said they didn't get a price tag on it, but they said they will help contribute. I wanted to say that we have a solution for possibly boarding up, because ultimately our secret agenda, I guess it's not secret, is we would like to use the property to help fundraise at some capacity, and boarding it up might completely kill that idea, although we'll move forward, and I would love to talk to Mr. Bobkowitz if he would be open to other solutions. And I really just wanted to conclude this with saying I'm a good person to come to if you feel like you can help us do this. I am not here to sell you anything. I'm a very busy person myself. We just have a rock-solid, crystal-clear plan, and to me, it's kind of the solution you've been waiting for. You can check it out. Everything is there, financials, everything at harleyclark.com, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Reverend Dr. James. For the record, this is no reflection upon the mayor or the police chief, because they have worked tirelessly with the black community. But there were 2 officers that I had to engage because there was a motorist coming down a one-way street for 2 blocks. I stopped the motorist and told her that she was coming down a one-way street. There were kids playing because there's 2 playgrounds. She just ignored me. So there were 2 police officers on bikes that I told, would you please catch her because she's going down a one-way. Within 7 seconds, they determined that this person was okay. Did not ask for her license, insurance, nothing. And within 7 seconds, it's amazing. When the officers came back by me, I engaged them and said, if that was me, a black man, you would have called for backup. You would have at least asked for my, license. They laughed at me, Mayor. They literally laughed like, nobody's have to pay any attention to you. You're a black man. That is not the reflection of the police department, trust me. We have some fine officers, but those officers should be called to account for what they did.
Thank you. Next is Tina Garrison, Susan Bacomo, Chantel Henley.
Good evening, everyone.
I'm Tina Garrison. I live at 1228 Simpson Street, which is just on the south side of the Civic Center here. And I'm here along with some of property owners and residents of our block of Simpson Street between Leon and Ridge. And we're here to protest the construction of the access drive from Simpson Street across the lawn into the city parking lot. It's essentially creating a street, a new street from Simpson. It joins the drive from Leonard, so it's essentially a new street cutting across the lawn here. Now, why are we here at this very late date? It's because we as residents didn't know anything about this until we noticed they were pounding in some wooden stakes and planting a number of flags on the lawn. And so we asked, and we found out from Public Works what the plan was. And we're told that it had been presented, and Alderman Holmes did acknowledge it had been presented at a Fifth Ward meeting, and it had been presented at the City Council in March of 2014. It was part of Director Robinson's Public Works report, and which from the video, that lasted over an hour, and the Civic Center was actually 1 minute of that. And I know you can't really see this, but this is the illustration that she had in her report. This is Simpson Street. This is the proposed parking, and it goes across to Leonard. Now, I've got another one to show you in a little bit. In searching through the City Council minutes and as many things, and believe me, I got a whole new appreciation of what you go through before these meetings with these hundreds of pages of documents. But the next thing we saw, there was some discussion in either April, I believe it was April of that year, and it was supposed to be continued in May, and it apparently wasn't. But in September, Resolution 71R14 was on the consent agenda and approved for the rehabilitation of the parking lot, which we all knew about, and we thought that was great. And so in looking at this resolution, what is attached as the exhibit for this rehabilitation project is this map. And I don't know how much of this you can see, but there is no access drive. It is not part of that grant, so it isn't part of that resolution. It's been added somewhere along the line. Director Robinson assured us that we would get more information, which we did. We got, on April 16th, we got a notice here explaining that the need, we asked, what's the need? What's the need for this parking? Because we're here, we see this parking lot.
Ms. Garrison,
scarcely ever full.
You're way over on time. I'm sorry. I know you have more speakers. Okay.
1 second here, because I think I'm going to use some of their time for this, because I had to give the overview. So anyway, it says a need for additional staffing and for early voting, a need for extra parking during early voting. And then at the meeting last week, at the ward meeting, she talked about needing it for city trucks. Anyway, because we knew we didn't think there was a need, we decided to do a census, and we'll have this passed out. You will see that on virtually every day for a month, we check morning and afternoon, there are between 30 and 60 available parking spaces in the main lot, let alone what's on the side streets, the Leon lot, and the Simpson Wesley lot. So we do not think there's a need, and we'd like to know how, after we do our talk, we'll follow up on this.
Okay. Susan? There.
Good evening, Mayor, City Manager, City Council. I'm here to complain about the same thing that Tina Garrison.
You could just say you agree with her.
I agree with her, but I wanted to also add a number of things, or I'll be very brief. I just wanted to add one concern is there will undoubtedly be increased traffic and noise. We live on a small residential street, and Unfortunately, we have to, and because of the facilities down the street where the fire trucks go and fill up, I guess, or park, we have to put up with a lot of sirens coming down. I guess they use Simpson Street as an access road, which, you know, I guess is legitimate, but there's not really a lot of competing traffic on Simpson Street because it is residential. But we already have a lot of loud traffic as it is, and we're worried about competing traffic or worse traffic as it is, particularly from facilities vehicles, which we think are going to be using that access road that is primarily targeted for facilities vehicles. So that's one concern. Another concern is due to this traffic or increased traffic, it influences or it impacts child safety. We've got at least 5-6 children under the age of 11 who consider Simpson Street on this stretch their home and who play on the street, and we're concerned about their safety. And so we're wondering, you know, is there anything that can be done to mitigate the increased traffic on the street? So speed bumps, something like that. I'll be quiet now. Thank you.
Thank you. Chantal.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I just recently learned about the possible boarding up of the windows at the Harley Clark Mansion, and I just wanted to, I agree with a number of the people that have come up to discuss it, but I just wanted to add, having been an attorney and been involved in a lot of property damage cases, the damage that occurs when buildings are boarded up, and in a very short period of time, what is so surprising what can happen. The elimination of ventilation in a building can cause the rapid deterioration of floorboards, tiles, woodwork. All of that gets accelerated and exacerbated in a very short period of time, which then ultimately becomes more costly for future use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Daniel Garrison, Ira Rose, Joe Bastian, and Lou Harms are the next speakers.
Mayor Tisdale, members of the council. I'm Daniel Garrison. I live in 1228 Simpson Street, across the street from the Civic Center. The plan to build a road and parking spaces over the green space south of the Civic Center came as a surprise to neighbors in this block of Simpson Street. At best, we have been able to determine there was no discussion of this project in the City Council. There was also no attempt made to hear the views of the project's Simpson Street neighbors, who remain convinced that the project is as voted on without review or discussion. Access to the area reached by this new proposed road is already provided via the entry near the corner of Simpson and Asbury and from the Leonard Place entry to the Civic Center. If built, this superfluous road and parking zone would destroy a sizable area of pristine green space and attest that the council is normally eager to preserve. For example, the city's Climate Action Plan of 2012 shows how this planning affects transportation and land use. How does this policy square with paving over thousands of square feet of grass to promote vehicle use? Because the proposed road and parking space is on higher ground than the existing parking lots west of the Civic Center, this add-on development would be conspicuous from Simpson Street and Ridge Avenue, resulting in a blighted aspect in an otherwise green setting. If we could find evidence that this added project had been discussed in council chambers, we would be convinced that the destruction of green space had been weighed against the benefits of vehicular access and parking. But we see no evidence on the record that this added project has been discussed. We therefore ask that you publicly discuss this project and consider its cost to the environment surrounding the Civic Center. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with him.
You are a terrific speaker. Thank you very much.
My name is Ira Rose. I live at 1220.
Oh, well.
I live at 1222 Simpson Street. Since 1975, I own 3 other properties as well as my home right across the street here. And I'm against the access way for many reasons. 1, safety. There are numerous families with small children on our block. More traffic means more danger to children and adults alike. 2, an audit was taken in April that clearly shows the need for the extra spaces designated for the access way are not needed. 3, the homeowners have collectively spent millions of dollars buying and fixing up our homes. This elevated concrete monstrosity will be an eyesore to our investments and lower property values. 4, we were not given any notice about this. 5, this does not support the city's intention of lowering the carbon footprint. 6, taking green space away from the City Hall is visually unattractive to a building of historical significance. And 7, the city is running a negative budget. If the need isn't there, why make things worse?
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Joe Bastian from 1238 Simpson Street, across the street here regarding the access road. I'd like to outline my questions and carry on with this. So we've seen Ms. Garrison's numbers from the parking census, and clearly it shows there isn't a need for the more parking in the neighborhood. So my question is, how was the need determined to create a new parking lot? The Evanston Livability Plan, approved by this council last May, includes a goal to reduce personal vehicle miles traveled by 42 million miles per year. The Civic Center parking project includes many sustainable elements, but this just creates more plentiful and cheap parking. How does this help us achieve the goal of reducing vehicle miles traveled? We've seen Mr. Garrison's estimate on the loss of green space and potential tree removal, and this is something that we can't get back. How do we offset the loss of trees and green space resulting from this new access road? Finally, we've seen the memo that shows the cost of the project at $1.5 million, but we don't know the cost for this particular section. So how do we understand the true cost and benefit of this specific project? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Next is Eric Decans, Mary Brugliera, and Rick Nelson.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Decans. I live at 1232 Simpson Street, and I also have a handout. Back in 2002, I believe it was, this same project was proposed, and when it was our very similar project, minus the green elements, and when it was still in committee, the neighbors were invited to come in and see the plan and offer our comments, and the alderman at the time seemed to appreciate some of our suggested alternatives to paving over the green space. I don't know what happened to the plan at that time. I don't think it ever made it out of committee. If you look at what my wife photoshopped, it's always nice to have a graphic designer in the family, you'll see that unlike the rest of the parking area, the new parking space will be elevated above street level and will be much more prominent than the current parking space. Obviously, the current parking space is prominent only by its size, but it will affect both the character of the neighborhood and the aesthetic character of the Civic Center. So I think that's an important consideration in before undertaking this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I agree with all of those opposed to boarding up the Harley Clark Mansion. The only thing I will add is one sentence. You could have a security person staying there until the restoration work begins. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou Harms, Rick Nelson, and Carl Bova. Carl's here.
Mr. Harms is not here, but he asked me to say something on his behalf. Mr. Harms is an 88-year-old professional engineer who has about 100 patents to his name. And Mr. Harms, like several of the other professionals, have emphatically stated that we should not board up Harley Clark, and that there's a security system in place and working right now. In addition, the shuttering up and shutting down of the ventilation and heating system will certainly lead to rapid deterioration that can be easily avoided.
Thank you. Was that you speaking for yourself as well?
No, that's
could you come and speak for yourself now?
Oh, I could do that, yes, okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'll do that. Carl Bova, 1322 Rosalie Street. About Harley Clark. I would have to reiterate the exact same things as Mr. Harms, so I won't do it at this point in time. So I'll save a little bit of time there. Harley Clark, this is a very public place and building. It's part of a wonderful and unique campus of 4 parcels. Simply put, it's a spectacular lakefront location for lake-centered cultural and educational purposes. Consider the following purposes, some of which have gained attraction of regional entities. An ecological classroom for dunes, lake, and forest study. An eco camp. Yoga and silver sneakers. A Jens Jensen garden renovation classroom. Multi-year renovation job training for all of Evanston. A Native American classroom. An explorers camp classroom. A local history classroom. An art exhibit space. A District 65 drop-off classroom. A District 202 vocational classroom. An Illinois coastal education classroom. A summer camp that eliminates lotteries and provides protection from the elements. Interest has been significant and needs to be further nurtured from a variety of sources. Some of those include the Jens Jensen Foundation, the Alliance for the Great Lakes, the Chicago Botanic Garden, the IDNR, and the School of the Art Institute. All that's needed to get the ball rolling is the city's decision to keep the site public and/or in the stewardship of a nonprofit foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes citizen comment. Oh.
One more.
All right. That does not conclude citizen comment.
Good evening. I'm Rick Nelson. I'm the president of the Evanston Environmental Association. I'm here on behalf of the EEA to express support for the classroom construction project at the Ecology Center. The Ecology Center is a great City of Evanston facility. Most parts of the facility are in good shape, but one part of the center is really in bad shape, the solar greenhouse. It's physically deteriorating. It loses heat in the winter and allows heat in during the summer. It's unsafe to walk in, it's an eyesore, and it's not securely sealed, allowing small animals to enter the building periodically from the outdoors. So anyone who knows and cares about the Ecology Center knows that the solar greenhouse is an issue. The project being discussed here tonight would tear down the solar greenhouse and replace it with an extension of the current classroom. The EEA believes that would be a huge benefit to the Ecology Center. Why would it be a huge benefit? First, it gets rid of the problems associated with the deteriorating solar greenhouse. But second, the classroom is where much of the activity is at the center: classes, meetings, camp sessions, birthday parties, and other miscellaneous programs. and most of the center animals reside in the classroom. So enlarging the classroom with this project would allow more needed space for all of the listed activities, for the animals, and planned interactive exhibits in the future. And aesthetically, the classroom would be much improved. So who's supporting this project? The three parties most closely involved with the success of the Ecology Center on a day-to-day basis are all in favor of this project. They are city management, who has responsibility for the Ecology Center, the staff of the Ecology Center, and the EEA, our organization being the nonprofit whose primary mission is to support the programs of the Ecology Center. All three of these groups are behind this project. And what about the finances? The financial resources.
I need you to wrap up.
Okay.
Thank you.
The financial resources are there. The city has $150,000 allocated, and the EEA is ready to provide $43,000 to provide the entire total that would be needed to do this project. So the EEA recommends very strongly that the City Council goes ahead and moves this project forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Alderman Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say that for the neighbors, for the Simpson Street neighbors, that we did have a really, I thought, a great meeting last week at the ward meeting to discuss this. Director Robinson was there, and we did discuss the possibilities of some designated or targeted spots for the parking. And it's not a new parking lot, it's an access road to connect to the existing parking lot in the city, and that to cut down on traffic, because I thought some good ideas came from the citizens about the traffic, and that Director Robinson was open to coming back with some new ideas about how that could be used so we could make sure that traffic wasn't increased on the street, as well as I want to make one other point, and that was it was to make sure that it was used by city staff rather than just residents coming and using it, so there wouldn't be traffic driving around the park, driving around the streets. And also the $1.5 million is because of the grant that is going to be used to redo the whole parking lot. I can't remember the exact amount for that area, but it's $100,000 plus. I can't remember the exact amount. And it doesn't affect any trees, so no trees are going to be taken down. I want to make sure that we all know that. So there are some good things that came out of the meeting last week, and I know that Director Robinson will be getting us a report back on that, just so that you'll remember that part is there. Okay.
Thank you. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My request is to Mr. Bobkowitz to provide additional information responding to the nugget of wisdom in Mr. Rizke's remarks, which was for information and a plan as to securing the Harley Clark building rather than relying upon rumor. There being a big difference between boarding up the building and thoughtfully securing the building.
Certainly. Alderman Grover, members of the council, as you know, the Evanston Arts Center continues to occupy the building. They have a lease with us, which is valid through the end of the month. It's our hope that they will be out by the end of the month. Every indication is that they will. At that time, city staff will evaluate the condition of the building. We have not been able to do that in some time. I'm very concerned about the health safety issues within the building, so we'll make an evaluation of that, and we'll also make an evaluation of the best way to secure the building. I have said publicly that perhaps it will require boarding up the windows from the inside. If that's not the case, we won't. If there's a better way to secure it, we will. But that building is extraordinarily fragile. The council has not made any determination on future uses of the building, and certainly we want to make sure that the building is safe and secure. So we will take those steps. My hope is that we'll have an update for you on our initial evaluation at the meeting on June 8th, when the Harley Clark Committee will be making its presentation. So I would imagine that Mr. Mayor and Mr. Gertis, the building official, both or at least one of them will be here on the 8th and can provide that update.
Thank you. All right. We are now at the consent agenda. Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We ask your approval of the minutes of the special council meeting, May 4, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, May 11. The Administration Public Works Committee met this evening and asked your approval for the payroll in the amount of $2,371,783.99 and the Evanston bills in the amount of $2,690,775.52. We ask your approval for an agreement with Open Kitchens for the 2015 Summer Food Service Program in the not-to-exceed amount of $325 per lunch. Expenditures for the program is expected to be $128,474. Reimbursement will be $114,656. Approval of a single-source purchase of hardware and software licenses from Dell in the amount of $299,503.13 to expand the city's virtual desktop environment and replace 300 additional desktops throughout the departments.
Alderman Rainey asks that A3.2 be taken off the consent calendar.
The one I just read?
Correct.
Oh, all right. If anybody would like any items off the consent agenda, would you let me know before I read them? But that is off the consent agenda. Disregard my request. A3.3, approval of the 2015 expenditure to Total Parking Solutions for the annual maintenance fees for 21 parking meter terminals, pay stations, in the amount of $31,500. We ask your approval of the 2015 renewal agreement with GSG Material Testings for material testing and inspection service in the amount of $136,000. We ask your approval also of a contract with G.A. Johnson and Sons for the Curry Park renovation project in the amount of $278,255.36. Approval is also requested in the for construction, consulting, and disbursement services for the Ecology Center classroom extension in the amount of $192,959. Sidewalk Cafe is proposed for Bangers and Lace, 810 Grove Street. We ask your approval. Also, a cafe for the Sidewalk Cafe for the Wine Goddess at 702 Main Street is up for approval. Resolution 53R15, appointing Mayor Elizabeth Tisdale and Director as to be the director and city manager Bobkowitz to be the alternate director to the Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County, known as SWANK, for a 2-year term expiring April 30th, 2017. Resolution 55R15 authorizes the extension of a license to Comcast, allowing maintenance of a building and fence in the public right-of-way of Mulford Street and parkland in James Park. 3-year extension. Total revenue from the extension lease is $60,416.40. We ask your approval to authorize the manager to execute ComEd customer work agreement to commit to paying labor costs in the amount of $45,787.87 for the replacement of the automatic transfer operation device located in the electrical substation at the water facility plant. Resolution 54R15, we're requesting you authorize the use of motor fuel tax funds in the amount of $350,000 for street resurfacing. Ordinance 71015 allows for the paving of the alley north of Harrison Street, east of Central Park, north-south leg only, through the special assessment process. Funding is $193,586.18. The property owners will reimburse the city for their 50% share. The committee agreed to introduce this, and I'm moving to suspend the rules so we can take action on this tonight. Ordinance 72015 amends Title 10, Chapter 11, adding the condominium complex at 1800 Ridge to the residential exemption parking district for introduction. Introduction also is requested for Ordinance 73015, which amends portions of the City Code residential exemption parking District A by including east side of Sherman Avenue to the already included west side of Sherman Avenue, Lincoln Street to Colfax Street, and both sides of Orrington Avenue, Lincoln Street to Colfax. Approval is also requested for introduction of 74015, amending Title 10, adding Evanston resident-only parking district, subsection B, District E2, from 6 o'clock p.m. to 6 a.m., 7 days a week for the designated streets listed. Ordinance 75015 is for introduction and amends Title 10, extending residential-only parking District 4 from Greenwood Street to Lake Street. We ask your approval to for a 3-year renewal lease for the League of Women Voters in the City of Evanston for office space at the Morton Civic Center. For action tonight, special assessment 1513, allowing paving of the alley north of Colfax, east of Central Park Avenue, through the special assessment process, $252,624.94. Then the property owners will reimburse the city for their 50% share. Ordinance 62015 is for special assessment 1514, which is a special assessment for the paving of the alley north of Lyons, east of Ashland, through the special assessment process. Total amount is $261,013.58, and the neighbors will pay 50% of the project cost. The following is ordinance, I'm going to read these in altogether, 63015, 64015, 65015, all for action. They have to do with dedicating portions of land from 2734 to 2738 and 2746 Central Park Avenue to the City of Evanston for the purpose of improving the adjacent public alleys. Approval is requested for increasing the number of Class F liquor licenses for Valley Produce, doing business as Valley Produce, Evanston, in the Dempster Dodge Shopping Plaza. We ask your approval also for 56015, increasing the number of Class D liquor licenses for Savory Inc., doing business as GGO's at 1001 Davis. The Planning and Development Committee met this evening and proposes that we update, this is an update regarding the City of Evanston drone moratorium, and we moved to place the moratorium on file. Ordinance 59015 is a time extension for planned development at 31820 Dempster Street. 2-year extension to obtain building permits for construction of the third dwelling unit within the former livery stable at the property by June 8, 2017. Ordinance 67015 grants zoning relief for the number of parking spaces and aisle width at 171923 Howard Street for introduction. The P4 is resolution 57.
Could you take that off, Alderman?
Well, I'm going to. Just 57R15, I believe, is simply removed from the agenda because it was paired with resolution 58R15, which has to do with approving the final plat of subdivision for Northwestern University. This I'll take off, Alderman Fisk, okay? So P5 is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair.
Is P4 still on the consent agenda?
I beg your pardon? No, it's
okay.
It's off. It's just off. H1 is off the consent agenda. Human Services Committee Resolution 59R15 is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. H2 is Resolution 56R15, authorizing the manager to negotiate and execute an agreement with the Evanston Animal Shelter to serve as the city's volunteer animal organization.
Please pull 01 as well, Alderman Rainey.
Okay. 01 is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the chair of the Economic Development Committee. And Madam Mayor has recommended the following appointments to the Utility Commission: Richard Shore, and for reappointment to Lad Arboretum Committee, Barbara DaCosta, and to the Housing and Community Development Act Committee, reappointment is Jeannie Sankey. Madam Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tyndall. Alderman Grover.
The consent agenda passes. Alderman Rainey, would you take us through Administration and Public Works, please?
Okay, let's see. I think we just had one. The Ordinance 71015.
No, A32.
I'm sorry. A3.2. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the one I read in. Okay. Madam Mayor, A3.2, approval of a single source purchase of hardware and software licenses from Dell in the amount of $299,503.13 will expand the city's virtual desktop environment and replace 300 additional desktops throughout all the department. I move approval.
Second.
Alderman Miller.
Marty, can you answer a couple questions real quick? And actually, I just kind of want to talk about something holistically. A3.2 is for computer purchase. We also have A3.6, which is for the Ecology Center rebuild, and A7 is for the automatic transfer operation device at the water treatment facility. Of those, only the Ecology Center was part of the capital improvement plan. Is that correct?
In the 2015 year, yes.
2015. So right now we have a capital improvement plan of about, it's going through 2017. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then these expenses we could actually possibly foresee in the sense of the computers, or a lot of them that are being replaced are over 8 years old, correct?
That's correct.
And then the automatic transfer system, if I'm calling it right, is the expected life of that device is 20 to 30 years, and it's about 20-some years. Is that correct?
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to for an
I'm sorry, at the water plant.
system.
I'm sorry, it's the
transfer water plant.
The automatic transfer operation device at the water treatment plant, right? This is basically a device that transfers power.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. A different agenda item. The switch.
And Alderman, that was a failure. So that was something I think separate and apart from that was a failure of a device that we connect with Commonwealth Edison. So that was something that was not anticipated.
Right. These, according to the backup we had, basically these devices have, and I'm nowhere an expert, but a 20 to 30 year lifespan, and it also failed in 2013. Is that right? According to that.
Well, actually, we had a fire at the water plant.
Okay.
So, and this was a replacement of one of those. So, during the fire, we replaced what we needed to at that point through insurance, and then the utilities department is also then updating, I believe, the current another switch at the plant. So.
Well, and this is just my general point. I think what we need to do as a council and also the staff, what I would ask we can start thinking about is a capital improvement plan that's longer than a couple years out. We have to anticipate that these expenses that we, for example, we can foresee that our computers probably have a five-year lifespan, and we're going to have to constantly replace these computers so they don't fail in vital operations. We don't lose our parking ticket system because the computers are 8 years old. So I would just ask that, I would like to bring it to the attention of the council that we begin thinking about long-term capital improvement plans so we can become more proactive in addressing some of these needs. Thanks.
And Alderman Miller, members of the council, this council has been very good generally about capital planning. Unfortunately, the recession occurred. The council looked at the debt levels that the city had, and I think the council asked staff to really regroup with that. We delayed purchasing computer printers that were in a capital plan, which we had to basically put aside because we did not have the money to pay for it. So as we move forward, this council has directed us to work on a capital plan that will get us through 2018, with the idea that a new city council then may wish to take on a more long-term capital plan process there, but to get us through that point with our finances leveling off. And of course, that was 6 months ago, and now we really don't know what's going to happen to our finances. So,
but it won't be good.
So, we will continue to be mindful of that. I think the council's been very supportive of planning, but I think, and certainly members of the council can speak to this, that when there's no money, it's difficult sometimes to weigh the energy expense and time to plan for something that we don't have the money to purchase. So we'll continue to be mindful of that. But certainly on the IT side, Mr. Calderon, who spoke at the committee, our IT manager, has done an excellent job really leading the organization to these virtual machines, which are much more cost-effective, much more agile as far as upgrading through software. So I think we're doing the best that we can given the circumstances, and we'll continue to work with the council on longer-term planning.
Thank you. Does that answer all your questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve the single-source purchase of hardware and software licenses from Dell Incorporated. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Rainey. Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tyndall.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
9-0, the motion passes.
Madam Mayor and Council, I move approval of Ordinance 71-015, alley paving special assessment 1515.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 71-015, and the rules have been suspended. Seeing no lights, no one wants to speak to the issue. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tyndall.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
9-0, the motion passes. Alderman Holmes, do you have anything with planning and development?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think you want P4 off as well, right? Take P4. Well, this way, I thought. P5, Resolution 58-R-15, approving the final plat of subdivision for Northwestern University. I would move approval.
Second.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, the committee discussed the two options that had been presented to us and decided that we would not move forward with P4, but 6 to 1 vote approved P5 to be presented to the City Council.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk?
And I should say with some amendments. And I'm not going to be able to quote the amendments exactly, but I know that it would be adding Carlos to the committee as a voting member for preservation items. Is that correct?
And Alderman Holmes, members of the council, that will be something that will be a separate action.
Yes.
So that's not an amendment of this resolution, but we'll come back to you with the reorganization of DAPR here in the next meeting or two.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Alderman Fisk?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry, Alderman Holmes, you're done?
That concludes it.
Thank you.
I think the other thing that I was asking to see in there would be an inclusion of the whatever issue was in front of the preservation that was going to be shared with the preservation commissioners individually to be a item on the preservation commission agenda, not for discussion but for an item of information, so that the public would be aware of that. And I think Mr. Menzer indicated that that would be something that they could
and
do.
that would be part of the report that he brings back to us at the committee.
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to make sure that was mentioned. Right. The other thing, I'm going to be voting against this. I much prefer and think it's in the better interest of the city to go with the Preservation Commission's recommendation for the final plat of subdivision that includes a binding review over those properties that are within 250 feet of Sheridan Road. And what was the other part of that? Not only within 250 feet of Sheridan Road, but also the two lots that were going to be included. I'm sorry, I don't have my I think it's Lot 3, and whatever their concerns were with Lot 3. Anyway, that's, I'm going to be voting against this.
Thank you. Seeing no lights for further discussion, all in favor of Resolution 58R15, approving the final plat of subdivision for Northwestern University, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, by 8-1, the ayes have it. Next, there's nothing on human services. Yeah. There is. All right, I'm looking quickly. Alderman Braithwaite.
H1 is off. Do I need to read it, or are we just fine with it being off? Read it, okay. Madam Mayor, I'd like to move item H1, Resolution 59-R-15, authorizing the amendment to the animal control policy.
And Mr. Chair, members of the council, I'm asking that this be held at council. The Animal Control Board is going to meet tomorrow, is going to review this, and I would think it would be a well-revised document to you. It will be largely what you see here, but I think if it's all right with the council, we would hold it and have it come back in 2 weeks.
Come back to council?
Come back to council.
Got it.
Is that all right with everyone? All right. It will be held.
Okay. You ready for economic development?
Yes. Are you the chair of that?
Of course.
I'm sorry, Alderman Holmes.
Of course I
did not know that.
Resolution 45-R-15 authorizes the city manager to execute an economic development grant with PEST, its social Kirk's Cafe. The city will provide financial assistance in the amount of not to exceed $42,000 to Kirk's Cafe, programming in the form of individual stipends to students successfully completing the job training program offered at both Kirk's Cafe located in North Kurtz, which is 2922 Central, and 1813 Dempster, which is South Kurtz.
Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Alderman Miller?
First of all, I just want to say appreciate the fact that the staff is going to create program guidelines for this program. That was the initial concern that Alderwoman Holmes and I had about it. It wasn't a concern of Kurt's Cafe. And Manager Bobkowitz, do you have a timeline for that? Do you know if we'll actually be able to have a second round of funding potentially this year?
Alderman Miller, members of the council, our thought was that we would try to have a solicitation in the fall for winter, spring, with this sort of being the summer-fall funding cycle. So we'll bring that back. Mr. Zalmazak will bring it back to the Economic Development Committee probably August, September timeframe, and we'll see if there's interest. Certainly we've heard from one business, and we'll see if there's additional interest.
Great, thanks.
That concludes it.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Mr. City Manager, are you going to be soliciting interest from businesses that are not only restaurants but extending to all businesses in Evanston?
Alderman Fisk, I think the council's discussion has been largely restaurants. We'll come back with a document for economic development, probably again late summer, early fall, and we'll look to the committee for its guidance as to, how broad or narrow it would be. Our sense from a staff perspective is that it is not a large number of businesses, restaurants or otherwise, that would perhaps be willing to take on a program like this. So it may be the wish of the committee and the council that if a business self-identifies and says that they'll have a nonprofit component, that they'll provide the training, I would imagine the council would be open to anyone who might be willing to have such an extensive program as Kurt's Cafe has developed.
Alderman Holmes.
I was just going to say I've had some preliminary conversations with Director Neiden in terms of possible workforce development fund in the Economic Development Committee for this, but I think that it will probably be limited to the hospitality industry because that is where you would find most of the jobs that would be willing to hire this particular population. That's what we're thinking now, but I think this will be a great discussion at the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you. Alderman Tandon.
I have one question. Will the model that we are proposing, will that be based roughly on what Kurtz is doing now, or is this an employment program?
Well, that's what Kurtz is an employment program, training employment program. I mean, it's no different.
Alderman Tennant, members of the council, I think our sense was from the council's previous discussion that it be modeled along the lines of what the Kurtz Cafe model is. My guess is that individual businesses would propose their own take on that, and I think it'd be up to the Economic Development Committee and the full council to decide if that made sense or not. So I think we'll know more when we do this next time, and we'll see what we get.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no lights for further discussion, all in favor of Resolution 43R15, authorizing the city manager to execute an economic development grant with PEST at Social Kurtz Cafe, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That leads us to call of the wards. Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to really thank our staff for doing a great job on putting together a plan for the Purple Line Express pilot. I thought the report was excellent. And I want to thank Peckish Pig and also the staff, economic development and the art staff for the theater focus group meetings that we've been having, and also for the first round of interviews that we've done with theaters. It's just a very exciting process, and I appreciate everybody's help. And I want to say goodbye to Jonathan. I think he's just been so helpful and so kind and so thorough. Thank you, Jonathan. And it's going to be really cold up there, so just it is so much warmer.
Yeah, it's really so much warmer.
At least in this chamber.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Miller.
I just want to announce that I'll be having my first ward meeting on Thursday, June 25th at 7 p.m. at the Levy Center, and I hope to see everyone there. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
First ward meeting Tuesday, June 2nd at the library, 7 to 9 p.m. Come on along.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, there's a third ward town hall meeting at Lincoln School Thursday, June 4th, from 7 to 8:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson. Thank you. Alderman Holmes.
Thank you. No report.
Thank you. Alderman Tendam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also would like to thank Jonathan for the work he did with regard to human relations and representation for the LGBT community in Evanston. It was an assignment that I know our city manager did oversee, but Jonathan really took the lead and made a lot of good recommendations that we were able to follow through and provide services beyond what most communities would even consider doing. So thank you, Jonathan, for that, and good luck in Minnesota. I also would like to refer to staff some sort of relief for the honorary street naming. We have there's a situation where most of us don't represent the downtown area. The downtown Evanston, though, is the most appropriate place in my thinking for an honorary street. And I still have yet, I've been on council more than 6 years, no one has asked for an honorary street name in my ward, although I'd be happy to work with someone if they did have an idea. So that does bring me to think that we need some sort of relief for us aldermen who would like to see a ward member or another person that we've had a close involvement with have the opportunity to have a street naming in the downtown area.
What's the request?
Is there a request?
This is a reference to the Rules Committee. You've got to refer.
Alderman Tendam.
So I'll refer that to the Rules Committee next, well, no, not next June, hopefully in July.
Rules Committee in July, then, to review the place naming process and for possible amendments.
Yes, okay. That's it.
Wait, what is your reference? I mean, I just want to know.
To review the process for these honorary street naming in public places.
Alderman Rainey, did you want to speak?
Well, specifically was the downtown area.
Okay. Alderman Fisk?
Somebody messing with my ward. Seriously.
You don't? Okay. All right, that concludes Alderman Grover. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few things. First, We had a good attendance at the Harley Clark Solutions Workshop a week ago tonight. Thank you to our chair, Steve Haggerty, for running a really good workshop, to Cindy Plant, who staffed it for us. And thank you especially to the residents who took the time to prepare and present the 5 options that the committee had identified. I thought they all did a really good job. A big weekend coming up. Green Ball at the Levy Center on Friday night. Dillo Day on Saturday night. Check the Dillo Day website for attendance policies. Most of you can come, but you will have had to get your wristbands ahead of time. And congratulations to the ETHS class of 2015, which graduates on Sunday. I understand it's a really accomplished class, so congratulations to 2015. And I do promise a board meeting sometime in the next 6 weeks. I hope it's a matter of putting together the data in the survey from parking on Central Street and then presenting a parking plan to residents and businesses, so which will be number 1 on my agenda. So good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
The ETHS reminded me that I wanted to say good luck to the ETHS girls soccer teams and boys baseball teams who are both in the playoffs.
Go Kits. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor say aye.